Captain Daniel Harper stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at the screen that showed the planet below. His crew had been traveling through space for 8 months now, finding old alien cities and ruins. This was their 43rd dead world, but something felt wrong about this one. Lieutenant Karen Morrison walked up to him holding a tablet. Her face looked worried and tired. She had been working all night to translate the alien writing they found on the planet's surface. The ruins belonged to a species called the Velthani, creatures who had built spaceships and traveled between stars about 12,000 years ago. Their cities were beautiful even now, with tall towers made of shiny crystal metal. But the Velthani were gone, all of them, dead for thousands of years. Daniel took the tablet and read the translation. His hand started shaking. The words were simple, carved into every building they had found on the planet. The message said the same thing over and over: do not approach the blue world. They guard something worse than themselves. Karen spoke quietly. The blue world has to mean Earth, sir. Daniel felt cold. He ordered his team to dig up more sites and check every building they could find. Over the next 3 days, they searched 17 different locations across the planet. Every single place had the same warning. They found it on temple walls, government buildings, and even in schools where alien children once learned. The Velthani had been desperate to warn someone about Earth. Daniel sent an urgent message back to Earth Command, even though he knew it would take weeks to arrive. But he also knew they had to keep searching. His ship had records of 42 other dead alien civilizations they had discovered over the years. Daniel had a bad feeling about what they might find if they looked at those records again. He told his crew to review every translation they had ever made. He wanted them to search for any mention of Earth, the solar system, or humans. He expected it would take days to go through all the data. Instead, Karen came back to his room only 3 hours later. She looked pale and scared. All of them, sir, she said in a shaky voice. Every single dead civilization we've found. They all left the same warning about Earth. Dr. Alan Price sat in his office on the research station orbiting Mars. He had studied alien ruins his whole life, but nothing had prepared him for what he was seeing now. 15 different survey ships had sent him data, and they were all reporting the same impossible thing. Every dead alien civilization had left warnings about Earth. His assistant, Lisa Grant, showed him a map of the galaxy on a holographic screen. Red dots marked every location where they had found the warnings. The dots formed a big circle around Earth, stretching out for 2,000 light-years in every direction. It looked like a quarantine zone, marked by ancient hands to warn others to stay away. Lisa pointed to one cluster of dots. The Karathi Empire. They were warriors who conquered 40 different star systems before they disappeared. We found their final message encoded in special crystals. It says, "We reached the border of the silent zone. We saw what the humans keep locked away. Do not follow us. Do not seek them. Let them maintain their vigil." Alan rubbed his tired eyes. They call our area of space the silent zone? Every species has a different name for it, Lisa explained. The Forbidden Sphere, the Warden's Domain, the Last Prison, but they all mean the same thing. They all warn others to stay away from Earth. Back on Earth, the Commonwealth Council had been in emergency meetings for 3 days straight. The council members were arguing loudly. Half of them wanted to investigate everything and find out the truth. The other half wanted to pretend they had never found anything and destroy all the evidence. Some were scared. Others were angry. None of them knew what to do. Admiral Helen Cross sat at the table listening to them argue. She was tired of the fighting. She was a military woman, not a politician, but even she could understand what this meant. Humans had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew the answer. They were alone because everyone else had learned to stay away from Earth. "What could we possibly be guarding?" asked Counselor Peter Shaw, slamming his hand on the table. "We've explored our entire solar system. There's nothing out there but rocks and ice and empty planets." Alan appeared on the video screen from his station on Mars. "Maybe it's not in our solar system. Maybe it's something we don't even know about yet. Something that's been here longer than humans have existed." Helen had read all the reports. She had studied the warnings and talked to language experts and historians. She had noticed something that nobody else seemed to understand. She stood up and spoke clearly so everyone would listen. "The warnings don't say we're guarding something on Earth," she said. "They say we guard something worse. Worse than us. What if we're not the guards? What if we're the first line of defense against something even more dangerous?" The entire council chamber went silent. Everyone stared at Helen, understanding slowly spreading across their faces. If humans weren't the threat, then what was? And why had so many alien civilizations died trying to warn others about Earth? Daniel stood in his ship's communication room, waiting for orders from Earth Command. He had sent them all the data his crew had collected. Every warning, every translation, every piece of evidence that showed aliens had feared Earth for thousands of years. Now he waited to hear what Earth's leaders would decide to do. Karen walked into the room carrying more reports. "Sir, we've been analyzing the patterns in the warnings. The civilizations closest to Earth disappeared most recently. The ones farther away died out longer ago. It's like something has been spreading outward from our solar system, killing any civilization that gets too close." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Or maybe they came too close to us and something killed them for it. "That's what I'm afraid of, sir." The communication system beeped. Earth Command was finally responding. Admiral Helen Cross appeared on the screen, her face serious and tired. Behind her, Daniel could see members of the Commonwealth Council watching. "Captain Harper," Helen said formally, "the Council has made a decision. You are ordered to continue your mission and investigate every dead civilization you can find. We need to know everything. How they died, when they died, and most importantly, what they learned about Earth before they died." Daniel nodded. "Understood, Admiral. What about the warnings? Are we telling people about this?" "Not yet," Helen replied. "We're keeping this classified until we understand what we're dealing with. The last thing we need is panic spreading across Earth, but Captain, I want you to know something. Whatever is happening, whatever we're guarding or defending against, we're going to figure it out. Humans don't run from problems. We solve them." Daniel smiled slightly. "Yes, ma'am. We'll find the answers." The screen went dark. Daniel looked at Karen and saw the worry in her eyes. They both knew they were at the beginning of something big and dangerous. Something that would change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the universe. Far away on Earth, in a secret facility beneath the ice of Antarctica, sensors that had been quiet for thousands of years suddenly began recording unusual activity. Deep underground, something ancient was stirring, something that had been waiting for a very long time. The warnings scattered across the galaxy were about to make terrible sense. Part 2 Lieutenant Commander Greg Palmer loved working on deep space patrol ships. He enjoyed the quiet, the stars, and the feeling of being far from everything. But that was before Earth Command discovered the warnings from dead aliens. Now, his ship, the USS Sentinel, had been assigned to watch the outer edge of the solar system. His job was to look for anything strange or dangerous. The silence in space felt different now. It felt heavy and threatening, like something was watching from the darkness. His sensor operator, Specialist Claire Abbott, had been running scans every day for 6 weeks. They were looking for anything unusual, any sign of what the ancient aliens had been so afraid of. The work was boring and tiring, staring at screens full of data for hours at a time. "Contact," Claire said suddenly, sitting up straight in her chair. "Distance is 40 billion kilometers just past the heliopause. It's not moving, just sitting there in space." Greg felt his heart beat faster. "Can you identify what it is?" "Negative, sir. It's not sending out any signals, and it's too far away to see clearly. But it's big. Maybe 2 kilometers across, nothing like anything in our database." They moved toward the object slowly, taking 3 days to get close enough for a better look. As they approached, the thing became clearer on their screens. It was some kind of station, built from materials that their computers couldn't identify. The design was ancient and geometric, with patterns that looked both mathematical and artistic at the same time. It was definitely not human. Claire stared at her screen, then gasped. "Sir, I'm detecting similar objects all around the solar system. Hundreds of them. They've been here the whole time, but our sensors couldn't detect them until we started looking in a different way." Greg looked at the image on the main screen, trying to understand what he was seeing. The stations formed a perfect sphere around Earth's solar system. Each one was positioned with exact mathematical precision. It was a barrier, a wall surrounding everything humans had ever known. "We didn't build these," he said quietly. "No, sir. Based on the particles and radiation around them, these stations are at least 4 billion years old. They were here before Earth even had life on it." Someone else had built a cage around humanity's home. Greg had two terrible questions in his mind. Were the stations built to keep humans inside, or were they built to keep something else outside? He sent an urgent report to Earth Command. Admiral Helen Cross received it within hours and immediately called an emergency meeting of all fleet commanders. She stood at the front of the briefing room, her face serious and determined. "We've sent probes through the barrier," she explained to the assembled officers. "They pass through without any problems. The stations don't react to human ships or technology at all, but we've detected something else out there, something beyond the barrier." She activated a holographic display. It showed deep space beyond the ancient stations. The area looked dark and empty, but there were strange gaps in the starlight, places where stars should be visible but weren't. "There's something out there," Helen continued. "Something massive. We can't see it directly with our cameras or telescopes, but we can measure how it affects gravity around it. It's been circling our solar system for an unknown amount of time, staying just outside the barrier." Commander Julia Bennett leaned forward. "How big is this thing?" "Our best estimates suggest it's larger than Jupiter, but it's not a planet or a moon. It's moving with purpose, following what looks like a patrol pattern, like it's watching us, or guarding us, or waiting for something." The room erupted with questions and worried voices. Helen raised her hand for silence. "There's more. We've examined the ancient stations more closely. They're not just barriers sitting in space, they're weapons. Inactive right now, but still functional. Someone built these things to fight something, and whatever that something is, it's still out there in the dark, waiting." Dr. Christina Hayes climbed down into the cave system deep beneath the ice of Antarctica. Her team followed carefully behind her, their lights cutting through the frozen darkness. The seismic surveys had found an anomaly here 3 months ago. Something massive buried under 2 miles of ice. Something that was too perfectly shaped to be natural. Now, standing in the excavated chamber they had dug out over weeks of hard work, Christina understood why the ancient aliens had been so terrified of Earth. The chamber was enormous, carved from solid bedrock with impossible precision. No tool marks, no imperfections. Just smooth stone shaped by technology humans couldn't begin to understand. At the center of the chamber sat a door. But it wasn't a normal door. It was 50 meters tall and made of a black material that seemed to absorb all light that touched it. Looking at it hurt her eyes, and it was covered in warnings. Her linguist, Paul Carson, stood next to the door, his voice shaking. "These inscriptions are in the same language as the Velthani warnings Captain Harper found. But these are older. Much, much older, maybe millions of years old." Christina walked closer to the door, even though every instinct told her to run away. The stone around the door was carved with images. She saw creatures, thousands of different species, each one looking more horrible than the last. She saw worlds on fire. She saw civilizations running and hiding. And at the center of all the carvings, she saw something that didn't make sense to her eyes. A shape that seemed wrong, that made her head hurt when she tried to understand it. "What is this place?" someone whispered from behind her. Paul read the inscriptions out loud, his voice hollow and frightened. "This is the first prison, the last prison, sealed by the ancients before the current cycle of life began. Do not open. Do not listen. Do not seek what lies beyond. And above all, do not let them know you are here." Christina turned to look at him. "Them? Who is them?" "The things inside the prison," Paul said, pointing at the door. "The warnings call them the Devourers. According to these inscriptions, they're the reason the universe is so empty of life. They're the reason civilizations don't last very long. When they escape from prison, they consume everything. Matter, energy, even thoughts and consciousness. And when they're done with one galaxy, they move to the next one." Christina felt ice in her veins that had nothing to do with the Antarctic cold around them. "Why is this prison on Earth? Why here?" Paul traced his fingers over the ancient writing. "Because Earth is the lock. The ancient civilizations who left the warnings figured it out too late. Humanity evolved here by accident, but our presence somehow stabilizes the prison. As long as we're here, as long as humans exist, the door stays sealed. If we leave or die out, the door opens." Another team member, an engineer named Kyle Morrison, was examining the door's mechanisms with scanning equipment. He looked up with fear in his eyes. There's something else wrong. The door's weakening. I'm detecting tiny cracks in the seal. Whatever is inside is trying to get out. It's been trying for a very long time. Christina made a quick decision. Get me a direct communication line to Fleet Command right now. Admiral Cross needs to know everything we've found, and somebody figure out why those barrier stations in space are positioned the way they are. I think I know the answer, but I hope I'm wrong. She turned back to look at the terrible door, at the warnings carved by desperate hands millions of years before humans even existed. She understood now. The ancient aliens hadn't been warning others to stay away from humans. They had been warning them to leave humans alone, to let humans do their job. The barrier stations aren't meant to keep threats away from Earth, she said quietly. They're meant to keep us here, to make sure humans never abandon our post as guards of this prison. Admiral Helen Cross stood in the command center on Earth, listening to Christina's report from Antarctica. Around her, military officers and scientists watched the video feed in shocked silence. The images from the chamber showed clearly on the screens: the massive door, the ancient warnings, the carvings of civilizations being destroyed. So we're prisoners, said General Frank Cooper, his voice angry. We've been locked on this planet, for our entire existence, forced to guard some ancient prison we didn't even know about. Not prisoners, Christina corrected him from the video screen. Guards, there's a difference. Prisoners are kept in place against their will. Guards choose to stay and protect something. The ancient builders gave us that choice. They made us smart enough to understand what's at stake. Helen looked at the geological data on her screen. Dr. Hayes, how long has this door been weakening? Based on the crack patterns and expansion rates, it's been getting weaker for about 50,000 years. The process is accelerating. We estimate it might fail completely in another 1,000 years, maybe less. Can we repair it? Helen asked. We're analyzing the materials now, but honestly, Admiral, we don't even understand how it was built. The technology is far beyond anything we can create. We'd need centuries of research just to figure out the basics. Helen turned to her tactical officer, Commander Nathan Price. What about the thing outside our barrier, the massive object that's been circling our system? Could that be related to what's in this prison? Unknown, Admiral. But if the devourers are as dangerous as the warnings say, it would make sense for one to be waiting nearby. Waiting for the door to fail. Part 3. The Commonwealth Council met in emergency session for the 5th day in a row. The large chamber was filled with representatives from every nation on Earth, and all of them were arguing. Some wanted to send ships away from Earth immediately, refusing to be guards for something they hadn't chosen. Others insisted they had a duty to protect the universe from whatever was locked in the Antarctic prison. Still others suggested finding a way to destroy the door and everything inside it. Admiral Helen Cross stood at the center podium, waiting for them to quiet down. She had reports from 300 different survey teams now. Every single dead alien civilization they had found left the same warning about Earth. The pattern was impossible to deny. We need to understand something, Helen said loudly, making everyone stop talking. Every civilization that approached Earth with bad intentions was destroyed. Every species that tried to help humanity advance too fast mysteriously vanished. The pattern is clear. Something is keeping us at exactly this level of development. Advanced enough to be aware of our duty, but not advanced enough to leave Earth permanently. Counselor Peter Shaw stood up, his face red with anger. So we're supposed to just accept this? Accept that we're prisoners on our own planet? Forced to guard something we never agreed to guard? We're not prisoners, Helen replied firmly. We're the key. Our scientists have analyzed the barrier stations. They're powered by something called exotic matter that we barely understand. But the stations are connected to Earth's biosphere. Specifically, they're connected to human brain activity. The more humans there are, the stronger the barrier becomes. The more we think and dream and live, the more secure the prison stays. Dr. Alan Price appeared on the large video screen, broadcasting from his research station on Mars. We've been running calculations for weeks. The cracks in the prison door seal get worse when human population drops. Every major catastrophe that killed large numbers of people caused the seal to weaken. The Black Death in medieval times. The World Wars. Every pandemic and disaster, each one made the door less secure. Christina Hayes joined the video call from Antarctica. The door has been slowly opening for thousands of years, and we believe the things inside are influencing us, pushing us toward extinction, making us fight each other, encouraging wars and diseases and anything else that reduces human population. The council chamber erupted in chaos again. Representatives shouted over each other, some demanding immediate action, others frozen in fear. Helen waited for them to exhaust themselves before speaking again. "The ancient civilizations left us one more message," she said quietly. The room slowly fell silent as everyone strained to hear her. "Captain Harper found it on the oldest ruins we've discovered. It was buried deeper than all the other warnings, hidden like a final gift to whoever found it." She activated a holographic display. Ancient alien text appeared in the air, with human translation below it. Helen read the words slowly and clearly. "To the inheritors of the prison world, you did not choose this burden, but it is yours nonetheless. Know that the devourers are patient. They will wait 1,000,000 years for a single moment of freedom. They will whisper in your dreams. They will turn your greatest minds to madness. They will make you believe that leaving is the only option. But if the door opens, everything ends. Not just your species, but all life in this universe. Stand firm, endure, and perhaps one day you will find a way to end them forever. Until then, you are the last defense. You are the guards, and you must never abandon your post." The silence that followed was complete. Every person in the chamber understood what the message meant. This wasn't just about humanity's survival anymore. It was about protecting everything that lived, everywhere in the universe. Captain Daniel Harper stood on the bridge of his ship, studying new data from the exploration teams. His crew had been working around the clock, investigating every scrap of information they could find about the devourers and the ancient civilizations that had fought them. Karen Morrison brought him a report, her face showing both excitement and fear. "Sir, we've found something important. One of the dead civilizations we discovered, the Ethrons, they left detailed records. They actually tried to fight the devourers. They built weapons. They organized a fleet. They thought they could win. What happened to them?" Daniel asked. "They lost completely. The devourers consumed their entire civilization in less than a week. 300 billion individuals gone. But before they died, the Ethrons managed to send out a warning beacon. We just finished translating it." Karen showed him the translation on her tablet. Daniel read it slowly, feeling cold as he understood what it meant. "The devourers are not creatures," he read aloud. "They are not alive in any way we understand. They are hunger given form. They are the end of all things. They cannot be killed because they are not alive. They cannot be reasoned with because they do not think. They simply consume. Matter, energy, time, space, thought, consciousness, everything. And when they finish consuming one universe, they move to the next. The ancient builders imprisoned them using technology beyond our comprehension. They built the prison strong, but nothing lasts forever. Tell the guards on the prison world to never give up. Tell them to never open the door. Tell them that if the devourers escape, the universe dies." Karen looked at Daniel with worried eyes. "Sir, if the Ethrons had technology advanced enough to fight on an interstellar scale, and they lost that badly, what chance do we have?" Daniel thought about it for a long moment. "The Ethrons tried to fight the devourers in open battle. That's not what we're doing. We're not warriors facing an enemy army. We're guards maintaining a prison. That's a different kind of fight. It's about endurance, not violence. And humans are very good at enduring." Back on Earth in a secret military facility deep underground, engineers were working on understanding the ancient technology. Commander Nathan Price supervised the research teams, watching as they carefully analyzed pieces of material they had extracted from the Antarctic chamber. "We can't replicate the materials," one engineer reported. "The molecular structure doesn't make sense. It's like the atoms are connected in ways that physics says shouldn't be possible. Then we need to learn new physics," Nathan replied. "The ancient builders understood something we don't, something that let them create technology that lasts for billions of years. We need to figure out what that is." Another scientist approached with results from the barrier station analysis. "Commander, we've made a breakthrough. The stations aren't just weapons. They're also drawing power from something. We think they're connected to the prison door. The entire system is linked. The barrier, the door, even Earth itself. It's all one massive machine." Nathan felt excitement and fear mixing together. If it's all connected, that means if we can understand one part, we might be able to understand all of it. Yes, sir. But it also means if one part fails, everything might fail. The system has redundancy built in, but it's 4 billion years old. Things are breaking down. Lisa Grant was working with Alan Price in the Mars Research Station, examining data that had just come in from deep space probes. They had been sent out to study the massive object circling beyond the barrier, the thing that was larger than Jupiter. "I've got visual data," Lisa said, her voice tight with stress. The probes got close enough for clear images. Alan looked at the screen and felt his stomach drop. The object wasn't a ship or a station. It was organic, alive, or something like alive. It had a shape that hurt to look at, with appendages or tentacles or something else that twisted through space in ways that made his eyes water. "That's one of them," he whispered. "One of the Devourers." "It's been out there the whole time," Lisa said. "Just outside the barrier, watching, waiting." "How long has it been there?" "According to the gravitational readings, at least 50,000 years. Maybe longer." "It's patient." "They're all patient. Because they know eventually the door will fail, and when it does, the one out there will be ready to free the others." Alan sent the images to Earth Command immediately. Admiral Helen Cross received them and added them to her growing file of evidence. She now had a complete picture of what humanity was facing. A prison full of reality-eating horrors. A weakening door that would eventually fail. A creature the size of a planet waiting outside their solar system. And ancient weapons that humans barely understood. She called another meeting with her senior officers. "We need to make a decision. Do we tell the public everything? Or do we keep this classified and handle it quietly?" General Frank Cooper shook his head. "If we tell everyone, there will be panic, riots, mass hysteria. Society could collapse. If we don't tell them, we're lying," Commander Julia Bennett argued. "People have a right to know that their entire existence has been about guarding a cosmic prison." Helen thought carefully. "We tell them the truth. But we tell it in a way that gives them hope. Yes, we're guards. Yes, there's a threat. But we also tell them that we're working on solutions, that humanity has a purpose, that we matter to the entire universe." She looked at the image of the Devourer on her screen. The thing was massive and terrible, but it was also outside the barrier. Locked out, unable to reach them as long as humans maintained the prison. Part 4. The announcement was made on a Tuesday morning. Every television, radio, and internet device on Earth broadcast the same message. Admiral Helen Cross appeared on screens worldwide, her face calm but serious. Behind her stood representatives from the Commonwealth Council, military leaders, and scientists. They all looked tired but determined. "People of Earth," Helen began, "today we're going to tell you something that will change how you see the world. We're going to tell you the truth about why humanity exists and what our purpose is in the universe." For the next hour, she explained everything: the warnings from dead civilizations, the barrier stations, the prison beneath Antarctica, the Devourers. She showed images and data, making sure everyone understood this wasn't a joke or a trick. By the time she finished, billions of people sat in shocked silence. "We understand this is difficult to accept," Helen continued, "but you need to know that this doesn't change who you are. You're still you. Your life still matters. Your dreams still matter. The only difference is now you know that your existence serves a greater purpose. Every person alive helps maintain the prison. Every child born makes the seal stronger. Every generation that survives pushes back against the darkness." The reaction was mixed. Some people panicked. Some got angry, but most simply accepted it and asked what they could do to help. Humans were practical that way. When faced with an impossible situation, they didn't waste time complaining. They looked for solutions. Captain Daniel Harper watched the announcement from his ship, now orbiting one of the ancient ruins far from Earth. His crew gathered around him, watching their world change forever. When the broadcast ended, nobody spoke for a long moment. "So we're guards," Karen Morrison said finally. "Born to watch a prison we didn't know existed. That's our whole purpose." "It's one purpose," Daniel replied. "We're also explorers, scientists, artists, parents, friends. We're still human. We're still everything we've always been. We just have one more job now." Another crew member, a young pilot named Steve Carter, looked worried. "But what if we fail? What if the door opens?" "Then we fight," Daniel said simply. "But it's not going to open. Because we're not going to let it." Christina Hayes stood in the Antarctic chamber, leading a team of 50 scientists who were working around the clock to understand the prison door. They had set up lights and equipment, turning the ancient chamber into a modern research facility. The door still sat at the center, dark and terrible, but now humans surrounded it with determination instead of fear. Paul Carson approached her with new translations. "I've been studying the smaller inscriptions, the ones carved in the corners and edges. They're instructions, a manual for maintaining the prison. Can we read them?" Christina asked eagerly. "Some of them. The language is complex and uses concepts we don't have words for, but I think I understand the basic idea. The prison needs energy to stay sealed. It draws that energy from consciousness, from thinking, feeling beings. The more conscious minds there are nearby, the stronger the seal becomes." Christina thought about that. So having a large human population isn't just correlation. It's actually necessary. We're literally powering the lock with our minds. Exactly. But there's more. The instructions mention something called resonance. The consciousness needs to be diverse, creative, growing. A stagnant population wouldn't work as well. The ancient builders wanted guards who would continue to evolve and develop. Kyle Morrison called out from where he was examining the door's surface. "Dr. Hayes, you need to see this. I found something strange in the cracks." Christina hurried over. Kyle was pointing at one of the tiny fractures in the door's seal. Through his scanning equipment, she could see something moving inside the crack. Something that looked like smoke or shadow but behaved like it was alive. "What is that?" she whispered. "I don't know. But it's trying to push through. Trying to widen the crack. I've been watching it for an hour, and it's definitely working with purpose. Whatever the devourers are, they're aware. They know we're out here studying them." Christina felt a chill. The things inside the prison weren't just mindless monsters. They were intelligent, patient, working slowly to escape. She made a note to increase security around the chamber and to never, ever let anyone get too close to the cracks. Back on Earth's surface, in military command centers around the world, soldiers and officers were being briefed on their new primary mission. Project Eternal Vigil had been formed, a permanent military and scientific organization dedicated to protecting and maintaining the prison. General Frank Cooper stood before 1,000 new recruits, all volunteers who had signed up after hearing the announcement. "You are now guards," he told them. "Not prison guards in the traditional sense. You're defenders of reality itself. Your job is to make sure that door never opens. You'll be trained in combat, science, engineering, and any other skill we think might be useful. You'll serve your entire lives, and your children might serve after you. This isn't a short assignment. This is forever." The recruits stood at attention, their faces serious. They understood what they were volunteering for. Many of them had written goodbye letters to their families before joining, understanding they might never see them again. But they came anyway because someone had to. Lieutenant Commander Greg Palmer had been reassigned from his patrol ship to oversee the barrier station research. He now commanded a team of engineers and scientists working to understand the ancient weapons that surrounded Earth's solar system. Claire Abbott worked beside him. Her sensor equipment adapted to study the strange technology. "I think I'm starting to understand how they work," she said excitedly. "The stations don't use conventional weapons. They manipulate space itself. They can create gravity wells, twist dimensions, or simply erase matter from existence." Greg looked at the readings. "Can we control them?" "Not yet. The interface isn't designed for human minds. It's like trying to read a book when you don't even know what language is. But we're making progress. In a few years, maybe a decade, we might be able to activate them if we need to." "And the thing outside the barrier? Could these stations destroy it?" Claire hesitated. "Maybe, but I don't think that's what they're designed for. I think they're designed to kill things that come out of the prison. The devourers. If the door opens and they escape, the stations will automatically activate and try to destroy them before they can leave our solar system." "A failsafe," Greg said. "The last line of defense." "Exactly. But the stations are 4 billion years old. We can't guarantee they'll work when needed. That's why we need to make sure the door never opens in the first place." Admiral Helen Cross called a meeting of Earth's top minds. Scientists, philosophers, engineers, military strategists, and even artists gathered in a massive conference center. She stood before them with a simple question. How do we kill something that can't be killed? How do we destroy the devourers permanently? The room fell silent as everyone thought. Finally, a physicist named Dr. Gary Bennett stood up. "We need to understand what they are first. The reports say they're not alive, not dead, just hunger given form. That sounds like they might exist in a state between dimensions. If we could understand that state, we might be able to push them out of our reality completely. A biologist named Sarah Lewis spoke next. But if they can consume consciousness and thought, that means they interact with the quantum level of reality. They're not just physical, they're affecting the fundamental forces of the universe. Then we need weapons that work on that level, Helen said. Weapons that can fight things that exist between dimensions and attack the quantum structure of space itself. An engineer named Tim Brooks laughed bitterly. That technology is centuries beyond us, maybe thousands of years beyond us. We're talking about rewriting physics. Then we have centuries to figure it out, Helen replied firmly. The door is weakening, but it's not going to fail tomorrow or next year. We have time, maybe 1,000 years, maybe more if we can find a way to strengthen the seal. We use that time to learn, to grow, to develop technology that seems impossible right now. Dr. Alan Price joined the meeting via video link from Mars. We might have help. The ancient builders left their technology behind. If we can reverse engineer even a fraction of it, we could leap forward in our understanding. Everything we need to know might already be here, waiting for us to be smart enough to understand it. Helen nodded. Then that's our plan. We maintain the prison. We study the ancient technology. We prepare for the worst while working toward a permanent solution, and we never ever give up. Lisa Grant was working late in the Mars research station when she discovered something that changed everything. She had been analyzing the barrier station's power signatures, trying to understand their energy source. What she found made her call Alan immediately. The stations are connected to something, she said breathlessly when he arrived. Something in deep space far beyond our solar system. They're receiving power from somewhere else, a source that's been broadcasting energy for billions of years. Alan looked at her data in amazement. The ancient builders. They're still out there somewhere. Or their technology is. They built a power network that spans galaxies. If we could find the source, if we could learn to tap into it ourselves, we might be able to create. Part 5. 10 years passed. Then 20. Then 50. Humanity adapted to their new reality with surprising speed. Children grew up learning about the prison and the devourers in school alongside mathematics and history. It became normal. Everyone understood their purpose. Everyone knew what was at stake. Captain Daniel Harper, now Admiral Harper, commanded Project Eternal Vigil from a massive space station orbiting Earth. He was older now, his hair gray, but his determination had only grown stronger. Under his leadership, humanity had made incredible progress. The barrier stations were no longer mysterious. Engineers had learned to communicate with them, to understand their systems. They couldn't fully control the stations yet, but they could monitor them, repair them, and even enhance them using the power source Lisa Grant had discovered decades ago. Karen Morrison, now Captain Morrison, led a fleet of exploration ships that traveled far beyond Earth, searching for more ancient technology and knowledge. They had found 17 more dead civilizations in the past 50 years. Each one added to humanity's understanding of what they faced. We found something new, Karen reported during a video conference with Daniel. A civilization that died only 5,000 years ago. They left detailed records of their attempt to destroy the Devourers. They actually damaged one. Daniel leaned forward. They heard it? How? They built a weapon that could manipulate the quantum field, just like Dr. Bennett suggested all those years ago. It took them 300 years to develop. They fired it at one of the Devourers that was attacking their homeworld. The creature was wounded. It retreated. But it didn't die. Did they record how to build this weapon? Yes, we're bringing the data back now. It's going to take years to understand it, but at least we know it's possible. The Devourers can be hurt. Maybe they can be killed too. In the Antarctic chamber, Christina Hayes continued her work. She was elderly now but refused to retire. The prison door had become her life's work. She had 3 generations of scientists working under her, all dedicated to understanding and maintaining the seal. Paul Carson, her longtime colleague, brought her the daily status report. The cracks are growing faster now. We're adding about 3 millimeters per year across all the fracture points. At this rate, the door will fail in about 800 years. Christina nodded. She had expected this. Have the reinforcements helped? Yes. Without the new support structures we built, it would fail in 300 years. We've bought ourselves time, but not enough. Kyle Morrison's son, John Morrison, was the lead engineer on the repair team now. His father had died 5 years ago, but John had continued the work. We're developing new materials based on what we learned from the barrier stations. If we can apply them to the door, we might be able to stop the cracks from spreading entirely. How long until you're ready to try? Christina asked. 2 years. Maybe 3. We need to be absolutely certain we won't make things worse. Outside the solar system, far beyond the barrier, the massive devourer still circled and waited. Deep space monitoring stations watched it constantly, tracking its slow patrol pattern. It had been there for at least 50,000 years. Maybe longer. Patient beyond human understanding. But something had changed recently. The creature was moving closer to the barrier. Not quickly, but steadily, as if it sensed something, as if it knew the door was weakening and wanted to be ready. Lieutenant Commander Steve Carter, who had served under Daniel Harper half a century ago, now commanded the Outer Defense Fleet. His ships patrolled the edge of the solar system, always ready for the possibility that the devourer might try to breach the barrier. "It's testing us," Steve said during a briefing, moving closer then backing away, trying to see if we'll react. "It wants to know if we're still here, still watching." Admiral Helen Cross, now retired but still consulted on major decisions, watched the devourer's movements with concern. It knows something is changing. The door is weakening and somehow it can sense it. We need to be prepared for the possibility that it will attack before the door actually fails. "Can the barrier stop it?" Steve asked. "Unknown. The stations were built to destroy devourers that escape from the prison. We don't know if they can stop one that's attacking from outside. We might need to find out." On Earth, human civilization had flourished despite the shadow hanging over it. Or perhaps because of it. Knowing they had a purpose, knowing they mattered to the entire universe, people had become more united. Wars still happened, but less frequently. Resources were shared more fairly. Everyone understood that fighting each other only weakened the prison. The human population had grown to 15 billion. Every new person born made the seal slightly stronger. Cities were built with efficiency and purpose. Technology advanced rapidly, driven by the need to understand the ancient builders' work. Dr. Gary Bennett, the physicist who had first suggested quantum weapons, was now the head of advanced research. His team had spent 50 years developing new theories of physics based on what they learned from the barrier stations and the prison door. "We think we understand how the devourers exist," he announced at a major conference. "They're creatures of entropy. Pure entropy given consciousness. They don't just consume matter and energy. They consume the organizational structure of reality itself. They turn order into chaos, complexity into simplicity, life into death." "How do we fight that?" someone asked from the audience. "By being the opposite. By creating order, building complexity, generating life. Every act of creation humans make is an act of resistance against what the devourers represent. Every piece of art, every new idea, every child born. We're not just guards. We're the universe's defense against entropy itself." Sarah Lewis, the biologist from that long-ago meeting, had made her own breakthrough. Human consciousness isn't just powering the prison lock. It's actively fighting the devourers. Our thoughts, our creativity, our dreams, they're all generating a field that opposes the devourer's nature. The ancient builders understood this. That's why they engineered humans to be so creative, so diverse, so driven to explore and question and create. Admiral Daniel Harper called a meeting of all project leaders. They gathered in the command station, either in person or via video link. Hundreds of the best minds humanity had produced, all working toward the same goal. "We've had good news and bad news over the past 50 years, Daniel began. "The good news is we understand more than we ever thought possible. We know what the devourers are. We know how the prison works. We know how to maintain and strengthen it. The bad news is we're running out of time faster than we hoped." He displayed the latest projections. 800 years until the door fails, assuming our reinforcements hold. But the devourer outside is getting more aggressive. It might attack within the next century. We need to be ready for that. Captain Karen Morrison spoke up. "The weapon data we recovered might be ready to test in 20 years. If it works, we'll have a way to fight back." "Not good enough," Helen Cross said firmly. "We can't rely on one weapon. We need multiple solutions, redundancy, backup plans. The ancient builders thought of everything. We need to think of everything too." Tim Brooks, now the chief engineer for the entire project, presented his team's work. "We're building new stations. Human-made versions of the ancient ones. They won't be as powerful, but they'll add to our defenses. We'll have the first prototype online in 5 years. And the door reinforcement? Daniel asked. John Morrison answered. Testing begins next month. If successful, we'll apply it to the full door within 3 years. It should stop the cracks from growing for at least another 1,000 years. Daniel looked at all the reports, all the progress humanity had made. 50 years ago, they had been helpless, barely understanding what they faced. Now they were fighting back, building defenses, developing weapons, strengthening the prison. We're going to win, he said with certainty. Not today. Not next year. But eventually, because humans don't give up. We never have. And we're not going to start now. Deep in the Antarctic chamber, Christina Hayes stood alone before the door. She was dying. She knew it. Cancer, the doctor said. She had maybe 6 months left. But she wasn't afraid. She had spent her entire adult life studying this door, understanding it, fighting to keep it sealed. She had done her duty. She placed her hand on the cold black surface, feeling the strange vibration that always ran through it. The devourers were in there, pressing against the seal, testing for weaknesses. But the seal held. It would keep holding because humans would make sure of it. We know you're in there, she whispered to the darkness. We know what you are. We know what you want. But you're not getting out. Not while we're here. Not while humans exist. We're the guards, and we're very good at our job. She thought about her life, about all the work she and her colleagues had done, the discoveries they had made, the knowledge they had gained, the defenses they had built. It was good work, important work, work that mattered more than anything else in the universe. Christina smiled. 50 years ago, when she first discovered this chamber, she had been terrified. Now she felt only determination and pride. Humanity had been given the hardest job imaginable, and they were doing it. They were standing at the edge of oblivion and saying no, saying not today, saying never.